On this week's episode of Bolts and Hose, episode 16, Kris and Bryce showcase some specialty fasteners from the shop and discuss some coating options for some of your favorite bolts and nuts. Don't miss this week's episode. Also, come check out the Ingenious Luau tomorrow. We're going to have a roasted pig, vendors, hula hooping contest, specialty beers. It's going to be a lot of fun for the family. Come hang out. Okay, now I'm done. Okay, third time's the charm.
Boats and hoes, boats and hoes. I gotta have me my boats and hoes. Boats and hoes, boats and hoes. I gotta have me.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to episode number 16 of
E6.
Bolts and Hose, episode number 16.
You sound down today, man. You okay?
I am. I'm a little tired, man. It's been a long week. Yeah. And today has been long as well. We've had a maintenance audit going on for our ISO.
It's always fun.
We've had a couple of large orders that have really kicked our butt, but we shipped them yesterday, so it's a sigh of relief. Yeah. Lots of different processes, lots of big parts. I think we had just about every machine in the shop, which is a lot of machines, by the way, working on this one order. I think there were 9 lines.
Well, all but 2 machines.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because we got the other big order that taking up 2 machines.
That's true, yeah. And then we got a rush order that came in at the last minute. We were able to get that one out as well. Yeah, but it's fun. You know, it's very rewarding, satisfying work, but it's tough.
That's what
Yeah. So we got a cool little show today. Again, we've got some parts that Bryce has grabbed from the shop. And then we'll have a little technical segment at the end. We'll talk about some coatings and platings and that sort of thing.
You know, some of the parts are coated too, so it'll be kind of cool. We can parts of the week and then transition that into, right into the coatings and, this why people use coatings and the processes, the whole nine. So
Perfect.
It'll be a little technical. Hopefully you get something out of it today.
All right.
What are you drinking?
You know, I'm opening myself up here. This is a
surprise you got it.
A strawberry mosaic Pilsner.
Strawberry.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't even have to say anything. I'm just going to let everybody.
You know, it's common. I get a mosaic Pils, and then they had a little twist on that. They put a little strawberry flavor in. And honestly, who doesn't like strawberry?
And their beer?
It's actually, you can't even taste the strawberry, though.
So why did you even get it?
It's not bad. I didn't know. I saw it on the menu. I said, hey, this could be interesting.
Fair enough. So I got, I'm mixing it up today as well. Normally I get the strong, crazy, silly beers. And today they have a Pimp C iced tea seltzer. So this goes out to my boys in PAT, RIP, Pimp C. Hey, okay, let me see if you know this. What rap band duo was Pimp C a part of?
Oh, man. You know, I think I knew this at one time.
3 letters.
Run DMC.
UGK.
I don't know.
And then
UGK. Never even heard of that in my life.
For 713 Day, they had a big deal here at... I'm pretty sure they did that.
Bryce is the hip-hop trivia master.
Yes. Bring on some hip-hop trivia, especially 90s. I mean,
maybe in the comments you guys can leave some hip-hop trivia for Bryce. I'm sure we'll get some comments on that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's jump into parts, Bryce.
Okay. Cool little part here. I think this is just a set screw. How about that? It's got an Allen drive.
With a pointed dog point.
And yeah, it's all with cool little leaves on the end. So this is actually made out of V7. I got this one. The order was for V7N. They threw them in the oven and tempered them. And so this one hasn't been tempered yet. This is just an actual piece they made.
That's very unique. We didn't take all thread bar. We machined that all from round bar, including the threads, right?
Yep. The whole shebang.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a
really good surface finish.
It is. I mean, so, going into coatings, here in a bit, if this stays plain and it is exposed to elements, obviously it will start to rust and you'll start to see discoloration on this thing, which coatings will help protect that from happening.
Yeah.
Another little small one. I know we've done some small parts here recently. This is a cool one that just went out today. We did 400 pieces of that. So that is an A286 660B shoulder socket cap screw. The little shoulder screw. Let's see that shoulder on there. It's a 1032 thread. Brought in half-inch bar, so a lot of machining went into this. And we do these parts actually quite a bit for a good customer. These come in about once a quarter. So good part. Lots to it. It's not on the shelf anywhere in the world, and all machine.
That was a fairly high quantity run too, right? Yeah.
So that's fun.
Nice.
Then we can start getting into coatings. I know we're probably going to adjust the camera here in a second, but I'll just give a quick overview. So we got some Teflon coated, different colors of Teflon coated. Big parts, small parts.
When people say Teflon coated too, Bryce, it's important to note, that's actually PTFE is the coating on the top. You'll hear this by several trade names like Whitford and Xylan and Fluorocoat FK1. There's varieties that are out there, but it always consists of a base coat, generally of zinc. So that's an electroplated coating. So it's cleaned, degreased, zinc electroplated. And then the top coat is sprayed on, generally with a manual process of somebody spraying this. And then it's baked and cured, and that's how you get to the finished product.
So why did they do so they clean so the zinc will stick to it? Is that correct?
Yeah, so they'll clean it, and then it goes through a bath that actually etches the surface. Yeah. If you were to look at it microscopically, you would see a small surface area. It wouldn't be smooth. So it just creates some texture and some surface area to get the coating to stick.
Yep. And then they zinc plate it.
Yep.
To give it some additional corrosion resistance.
Yeah. Generally, the zinc plating is for the corrosion resistance. That's the base coat underneath.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the PTFE coating on top is for the corrosion resistance, but generally the belief is, or the design was made so that the zinc would allow for the corrosion resistance, and then the top coat is primarily there for frictional characteristics to lower the K factor of the bolt. So when you're tightening it, you'll have a lower torque value to get to the right bolt stress that you need.
You going to adjust the camera so we can zoom in on this bad boy?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. I think we'll start out with probably the most common, and this is just your PTFE blue. You hear this all the time. People call it Teflon coated PTFE blue. Like you said, Xylan 1424.
Whitford.
Okay.
1014.
5 different versions. Different names, but at the end of the day, it's pretty much identical.
Yeah, well,
there's a little process.
There's different base coats. There's different top coats. They make different polymers to go onto the surface, and they have different concentrations of different type of elements. But generally speaking, it's going to consist of a base coat and a top coat. And the top coat's going to be PTFE based, so it's going to have PTFE particles suspended in a resin, and it's going to be baked on and cured on.
So, a lot of times people will import standard studs that are PTFE coated. You don't really know how that's being coated. That's one of the always interesting things to me is, there's no spec on that, right? I mean, they just call it PTFE. I want a B7 all thread stud, 5/8, 3.5 PTFE coated.
Right.
So, I know there's some,
unless you get into some of the more specialty things like Thermogard.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's, thicknesses and salt spray hours.
And people would describe that as an actual coating system. So it consists of a very specific base coat, very specific thicknesses of the coating, and then also how that polymer is applied on the outside.
But so for example, the one that you're looking at here, I mean, that is made to order in our shop, and then it's sent out specifically to get coated per a customer's requirement. So a lot of end users, a lot of OEMs, they'll have an actual spec for the coating.
And then you'll have different colors and things as well, right? So you can get that in yellow and green and any other type of color. Black is one we've done before as well.
So you can. I mean, there's different color codes. I think it's a 3-letter or a 3-number code, typically like 562, I think is the normal blue. But, we made them in white. We've coated bolts in white. A lot of times they'll have different applications or different units, different materials will be coated different things just so they can tell, where it's going or what.
I've seen that at the end user level where they will coat a particular alloy, a specific color. So it's always PTFE top coat. It's always the same chemical resistance, same temperature resistance, same frictional characteristics, but just a different color to quickly identify what the bolt is.
Yep. So these are ones we had handy on the shop right now. So this is like a army green color. Again, similar double end part that was made and sent out. This had a specific coating spec. It was coated. So, it can be made big, small. There's really there's no limitations on size. I mean, you can coat small parts similar to this. This is a little, long set screw onto the big parts. I mean, they coat like manifolds and all sorts of equipment with PTFE.
So, another thing to mention on PTFE too, Bryce, is that top coat is generally applied by a person spraying this. So you're spraying around the outside with a gun that's very similar to an auto body gun, right, where you'll spray an auto body. So it is prone to, somebody laying on a little heavier in one area, a little lighter than the other.
Yep.
So it takes some skill and it takes some control in the operation to ensure that the consistency of the thickness is the same, in the crest of the threads, in the root of the threads, on the tops of the surfaces, really just everywhere. And it's very easy to, apply too much coating and it pulls up in certain areas, especially where you have small cracks and crevices and interesting geometries. So a very experienced coater is very valuable in applying this type of thing. So I think some people would think this is some type of automated process where it's on a conveyor and it's automated. Generally speaking, and even in some of the larger coating processes that I've seen, it's that side of the process is always very manual.
And to that note too. So a lot of times when you're coating something with PTFE, you're going to over tap the nuts to fit on. So typically you're taking 1,000 off of, or 10 thousandths off of the nut to open it up a little bit, yep, and then coating the nut, and then it allows for that thickness of the coating to spin on. So I know there's some applications that don't allow. I know API, they don't allow over tapping with the current.
Yeah, we're talking about a very thin coating. I mean, generally the coating with the base coat and top coat is about 0.02 of an inch thick. And when we talk about increasing 10 thousandths of an inch for the overtap, that amount is really what corresponds to allow that 2 thousandths clearance to allow for the coating on both the male thread and the female thread so that it threads together. So especially on some of the smaller diameter fasteners, you have to open up the clearance in order for it to assemble. And so you don't have binding and that sort of thing between the threads.
We've also had some customers that'll come to us and they say, due to pricing or due to time constraints, we're going to give you the nuts and we're going to give someone else the studs. And, one of the things that we push back a little bit is we always like to trial fit that, right? When you're coating something, you should get the nuts and studs together. That way we can trial fit and make sure everything spins on freely. Because sometimes someone might not overtap a nut, someone might not, they might make the major at the high end and the nuts may or may not work.
Sure.
So it's something to
good
keep
point.
in mind.
Good point. Yep.
Yep. What do you want to do next?
Did we have a NanoGalve?
Yeah, here we go.
Since we're on the subject of overtapping.
These are just some NanoGalve studs that we had extra sitting out there. So NanoGalve is similar to, it's a zinc nickel.
It's an electroplate. Yep, similar.
So basically used a lot in offshore automotive corrosion resistant applications. It's really catching on. You're seeing a lot more end users spec it in, Exxon, Chevron.
And it's a process that has very similar corrosion resistance, or even better corrosion resistance of a lot of other coatings. But one of the cool things about it, hence the name NanoGalve, is the coating is extremely thin and you get the same corrosion resistance, but you're not, it's so thin you don't have to overtap the nuts. So a lot of users from a reliability perspective prefer that because you're not altering the geometry or the state of that standard ASME geometry that's tried and proven. So this is one of the reasons why it's caught on so well, especially in real critical applications, offshore applications, things where, you cannot afford any type of failure at all. That just gives the engineer a little better sense of security applying that coating to their range, especially when you compare the chemical resistance, which is really good.
And so this is pretty specific to alloy bolting, alloy steel, right? So B7, L7, you do not NanoGalve stainless. It's only going to adhere to an alloy. It's typically this gray kind of dull matte color. Sometimes it'll have like a bluish hint to it when it gets out of the bath. But we do these quite a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's next? Similar to that,
Is that a hot dip galvanized?
hot dipped galvanized.
Yeah. So this is probably more old school. You'll see this a lot on structural fasteners. I'd say this is a very primitive coating. It's very quick and dirty and cheap. But it does allow for excellent chemical resistance. When you put zinc on the outside of the fastener, that is the sacrificial element that will corrode prior to the base metal of the bolt. So the zinc is that anode in the whole corrosive circuit there, so that when you put that thick zinc coating, that's going to have to corrode before the bolt does. So it will corrode over time, and the zinc will eventually leave, but it does buy you a lot of time before that corrosion ever attacks the base material of the bolt. So zinc is a very common metal, sacrificial metal that's used as a coating for corrosion.
This is, typically you see the hot dip galvanized in structural applications. So, this is an A325 hex bolt, and, typically they're not fully threaded, but I think, this customer always wants them fully threaded. So this was brought in fully threaded, sent out to get coated. It's a very inconsistent coating.
Because it is a dipping process. We talked about all these others being either electroplated, which is extremely consistent, or a spraying method, which, again, is operator specific. But whereas this one is very much a dip and almost a spin process where it's spinning and you're taking the excess material off. But what you're left with once it's dry is a fairly inconsistent coating and a very rough coating too. There's a really high frictional characteristic on all of these surfaces because it's very rough.
Yeah.
And
because you can, on a PTFE, this feels smooth. On a NanoGalve, this feels smooth. With the hot dip, you can really feel the gunk on there. If you can see it even, it's just a rough finish. And then two, to ensure you don't really know how much coating is on there. So to ensure that nuts fit, they'll be brought in after the hot dip process, and then they'll be over tapped at that point.
Yeah, and generally where you're allowing 10 thousandths over on a PTFE coating, on hot dip galvanized, you're generally over tapping at 20 thousandths, so twice as much to allow for that coating because it's so thick and because it's so inconsistent. So you'll find this a lot on structural fasteners. You'll walk by a bridge or a lamp post on a street somewhere, things that are really exposed to the elements. But it's that very thick coating of zinc that is the reason why those alloys last so long in the wild, is because of that zinc coating, and that's going to, again, be that sacrificial element.
So, one we didn't bring any samples of was a zinc plating and then a Cad plated.
Yeah.
We can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can, or here, let's talk this one. So this is one we're shipping out today. These are some heavy hex bolts, A490 heavy hex bolts that are aluminum zinc coated. So it's a very special coating that has to be sent out to, there's not a whole lot of places that do it. So, it's got a lighter color. It's a lot cleaner. It's not as dirty as you can see the A325 hot dipped. So just another variation of the zinc base coating with a little aluminum. What would the aluminum be put in there for?
I was just thinking about that. I'm not sure the technical basis for that. I don't know. Yeah. But it is interesting. It's a very nice looking coating.
Yeah. It almost looks like a Thermogard, right? It's got that kind of light gray, smooth finish to it.
Very nice.
Yep. All right, we're going to flip off close up and get back to that stuff.
So, some of the other coatings that we didn't talk about as much were Cad and Zinc, and that's probably some of the more common ones. Yeah, both of them are applied with an electroplate. I mean, you'll see those, and they'll be very shiny, very reflective. Generally speaking, Cad will be a yellow color. You'll see yellow Cad, but you also see clear Cad. Yeah. But then same thing with Zinc. I mean, generally speaking, though, Zinc will be clear or grayish color, lighter color, and then, that's generally speaking how you can tell them apart. But over the years, from a cadmium perspective, that has received a lot of flack in the last 20 years or so, because during the process there's a carcinogen that's let off when you're processing that. So it's not as
It's safe.
Yeah, as safe for the employees when they breathe that in. So people have gotten away from high volume cadmium electroplating, and zinc has almost become the standard, because you really can't tell from a salt spray test standard or chemical resistance, temperature resistance, the difference between the two. A lot of people will swear by Cad, but technically speaking, you don't see a lot of difference there. So most people have migrated to zinc, and it's a lot safer to process it as well. So you don't have to have the permits and things. Why's that? Really? Why was he licking the Cad off of it? He was licking the Cad? That guy was probably, he probably died of something else. Yeah. Doesn't sound like the smartest guy out there. Yeah. But I'll research that. We'll report back to everybody next week.
But so we did not bring any Cad or zinc.
Yeah, it's a very common one out there. I mean, most of the things you should walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's, next time you're in there, walk through the shelves, and most everything you're going to see there's got a zinc electroplate on top of it. It's a shiny finish. It's very easy to do high volume stuff. A lot of the commodity stuff is done that way.
Then you run into different kinds of other coatings like electroless, zinc plate, mechanical galve, thermogar, and there's a variety of other coatings out there, platings.
Yeah. So guys, if there's other things you want to talk about, other things you want to see, and topics for future, any comments about coatings or plating, we'd love to start a conversation with that. We're always open to have dialogue and discussion and learn from everybody out there as well.
And no, Paulie is MIA. I think he's watching some dances somewhere.
That's true. Yeah, with his daughter. Yeah.
I hope it's.
Yeah. All right, guys. So have a great weekend, and
Like, comment,
we'll
hose.
catch everybody next week. All right.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, Bryce.
Happy Friday.
Have a good weekend. Stay cool, man.
Boats and hoes, boats and hoes. I gotta have me my boats and hoes. Boats and hoes, boats and hoes.